It is Beyond the Box Score 2.0 version. The boys are back.
Little blast from the past,
Star-spangled banter. Connor, you go first.
This is going to sound completely crazy.
Win me a few more games before you start dancing. That's all I ask.
That is the difference between being good and being great.
How about that segue right there, baby?
Forward bounce, just get it out of here.
You like that?
And they let the team down on Sunday. Last call.
Good evening and welcome to Beyond the Box Score, episode 16, however you may be listening or watching. I'm Cole Johnson here. We're without Connor tonight. He's a working man. He got back to work at Medaille College, actually coaching baseball tonight. So I'll be riding this thing solo, steering the ship for tonight, but a lot on the plate. It's Super Bowl week in the NFL. Big stuff coming up. A lot of guests today. It's a pack-filled show. Thank you for joining us. It's snowy here in New York. There's a lot of snow built up. So we know we're deep into the winter season, and that means the Super Bowl. So we got a lot to get to. But before we get to the Super Bowl talk, the crazy thing in the NFL is there's a lot more going on in this league right now than the Super Bowl. And we've seen the most talk across the NFL in this 2-week Super Bowl hype that I've ever heard. You have Deshaun Watson wanting out of Houston. He could be on the move. A lot of potential quarterbacks on the move this season. It's going to be a very interesting offseason. And not only that, but a bomb dropped on Saturday night. I'm sitting back, lounging in a chair down here in the basement on a big screen TV watching Hamilton with my girlfriend Taylor, and boom, Matthew Stafford traded to the Los Angeles Rams for Jared Goff and a few picks. A lot going on there. An absolute bomb on a Saturday night out of nowhere. Very unexpected, and it came at a strange time. So we'll start off right there with our star-spangled banter. And here's how it goes. Here are just the facts. The Los Angeles Rams used 6 draft picks to draft up and take Jared Goff at number 1 in 2016 NFL Draft. He gets to a Super Bowl. They sign him to an extension. Now, you're looking at them giving away 3 draft picks to get rid of Goff. And now they're in $22 million of dead cap space, paying more for him than what their new quarterback is in Matthew Stafford. Now, Matthew Stafford is on his way to 33 years old. He has not won a playoff game in his 12-year career. And he has either ended his season or played through multiple serious and major injuries. So a lot of people think that this was the worst trade ever. Detroit won this trade. LA is just stupid. You give away all these draft picks. You give away a quarterback you drafted at number 1. People think Detroit won this trade straight up. But here's the thing. You all say Matt Stafford is old and he hasn't won. Well, Stafford has been in Detroit, an organization that hasn't been competent in years and years and years. No playoff wins since 1991. And age, well, Tom Brady is in the Super Bowl at the age of 43. Matthew Stafford, 10 years younger. See, this is where I see it. This is a win now move. This is the Rams organization taking a swing for Sean McVay, a guy who they think is the next big thing in the NFL, the next big coach. This organization has shown that it goes all the way in. They went all in for Aaron Donald. They went all in for Jalen Ramsey. They don't care about 2022 or 2023. They care about now. They care about 2021 right now. And you might think this was such the biggest trade in the world, whether you'd think LA went out to get a Deshaun Watson or a Patrick Mahomes for these picks. No, they got Matthew Stafford, and everyone's in uproar. He's old and he hasn't won a playoff game. If you're going to base Matthew Stafford's talent based off of his time in Detroit, here's something for you. You're out of your mind. How often do we see talent being wasted? We see it all the time. You have a young mind right out of college, and they make a decision, maybe good or bad, I don't know, to land in a job And maybe it's just not the best fit. They do the work. They're smart. They get the job done. Work ethic is amazing, and they excel. But their management doesn't help. They have to learn on their own. They have to grow on their own because the bosses or the higher ups, they're useless. They don't give any help. So put it into context for you. This past year, my girlfriend, Taylor Marie Kroll, was one of the best in her class, had the brightest future in speech pathology. She had big dreams, was in the position to move up. She wanted to take big opportunity. And she found a position in the Moreno Valley School District, which is in California. She was set up with an incredible boss, a millionaire dollar mind and company. And Taylor picks up in her entire life and moves 3,000 miles away after taking everything into account. She had a notebook that I watched her write in: cost of living, salary, benefits, and how she'd be able to even pay off her student loans. What was the best way for her to do that? She had an opportunity to take on a full-time job with such a good salary and benefits for a job right out of college. You don't see that too often. And that's despite the cost of California living. So with all of that being said, with the good salary and benefits they were offering her, that despite of the California living, she'd make tons of more money taking on this job than taking on one and living rent-free in her home in New York. Shortly after the 3,000-mile move, a bunch of costs later, the move across the country takes some money. There's a new bill passed, the Uber bill. It takes away the 1099. It's passed in California, and that takes away this certain salary, and her boss has to get rid of her old company. She gets put into a different company where the salary is thousands of dollars less, making the move from New York to California basically irrelevant. She's now unable to pay off her loans and finds herself stuck in a school district that gives her no help and no time to breathe and do her job. The workload is just overwhelming. You can't do it efficiently. This was Matthew Stafford for 12 years in Detroit. Hey, Matthew, come on in Detroit. You're the number one pick. You're going to get paid a lot of money. We have a new head coach in Jim Schwartz, which we're excited about. And you have the best receiver in the league in Calvin Johnson. Will be amazing. Well, Calvin Johnson ended up retiring prematurely because of the incompetence of this organization. 12 years later, the Lions have yet to win a single playoff game since 1991. In that time, Matthew Stafford is number one in completions, passing yards, touchdowns, and passer rating in the Detroit Lions history. He sets a record as being one of the only quarterbacks to make as many pass attempts and completions in a season for a QB who's never won a playoff game. He is one of the most underappreciated and overlooked quarterbacks in our generation because he's been in Detroit. It's all about where you are. I talked about it a couple weeks ago with Phillip Rivers and his career in San Diego / Los Angeles compared to how Eli Manning and Ben Roethlisberger ended up right out of the 2004 draft. Matthew Stafford had one top 10 defense in his career, and that year they won 11-5. That was in 2014. He's now going to LA, who had the number one defense in 2020, with stars all over the place, not to mention a three-headed backfield, an outstanding offensive line, and Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods to throw to. Detroit is in midst of a rebuild, no defense, and now another new head coach with a quarterback in Jared Goff who struggled immensely in the past two seasons. You tell me who really won this trade. You tell me. I guess we'll find out in a couple of years after LA wins the NFC West a couple times and gets to a Super Bowl. It's tough. I don't know how we look at it. There's a lot of factors that go into it. But with that being said, after all this, I got to bring in another one of my good buddies and pals from Medaille College. We've had him on the show before. Stephen Hostinski, a longtime Detroit Lions fan. And Steve, are you there?
Yeah, cool. There we go.
Steve, it's great to see you again. Thank you for coming on again. And we're just going to get right into it, Steve. The bomb was dropped on us on Saturday night out of nowhere. I said what I just said earlier. I was lounged back, sitting watching a movie with my girlfriend, and I get an update coming from all over the place. Stafford for Goff, out of nowhere. So Matthew Stafford going to the Rams for a 2021 third-round pick, a 2022 first-round pick, a 2023 first-round pick. A lot of people say Detroit won this trade. You have Matthew Stafford, who hasn't won a playoff game. He's 33 years old, and you have a 26-year-old Jared Goff, who's been to a Super Bowl. So a lot of people are saying Detroit won this trade. What is LA doing? What do you think?
Cool. I mean, we all know Stafford's a baller. He goes out there and competes every game. I know Goff's had a couple down years out in LA, and I know people around the league are starting to respect Stafford for what he does for being on such a bad football team throughout his whole career. So, I mean, the Rams, they definitely are Super Bowl contenders now, in my opinion. Like, Stafford's going to elevate them to the next level. But, I mean, you look at what Detroit did. They got, like, a Madden trade, in my opinion. Like, you got 2 first-round picks and, a proven young quarterback who's had a couple bad years. So, I mean, both sides, I feel like, won the trade. But, I mean, you take the emotion out of it. I like what the Lions did. But, yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at with the situation right now.
And just to look on the other side of the LA thing, Steve, I know you're the Lions fan. We'll get to that in a minute, but do you agree with the way LA handled that? They basically came out and publicly stated their mistrust for Jared Goff. Even Sean McVay came out and said something in a press conference and made people think, oh my gosh, are they going off Goff? And then boom, this happens. They do that and they send him away so quickly. A guy who you traded 6 picks for to go up in the draft to get him, he gets you to a Super Bowl, and then you say that publicly and you send him right away. How do you agree with the way LA handled this?
I mean, I don't really follow the Rams that much, to be honest, but I mean, I did hear that. And I mean, there must have been something going on there, but I mean, I really don't agree with that, to be honest. I feel like Goff, I mean, he's made 2 Pro Bowls. I mean, you put his numbers up against compared to Stafford. I mean, they're very similar. So, I mean, he's just a younger version, kind of, just a couple down years. So, I don't really know what Bay is thinking. I mean, is his job on the line? Like, what's going on there? Does he need somebody to win now to keep his job? I'm not too sure, but I mean, they seem like it was they're pressured. They're feeling pressure to win now, and they went out and got their guys. So I mean, that's the way I see it for the Rams.
And Steve, you were born in what, 96, 95? You're
95, yeah.
95. Okay. So since then, the Lions have been to 5 playoff appearances, each of which ended in a wild card loss. No playoff wins since you've been a fan. You go 0-16 in 2008. You get the number 1 pick in Matt Stafford. He brings Detroit to 3 playoff appearances. Jim Caldwell gets fired after having a 36-28 regular season record.
Yeah.
That's over 500, more than most of the coaches we've seen in this league. Stafford played multiple games while injured. He's been called as the tough as nails quarterback, the most tough quarterback in the league. What can you say about Matthew Stafford in his 12 years in Detroit and what the value he meant to that organization? Like, just from your eyes, what has he meant to you and this organization as a whole?
He is the ultimate competitor, going out there every game, playing hurt, like you mentioned, playing with a bad defense, playing 3 seasons or something without a running back, rushing over 100 yards. The dude, without Matthew Stafford, the Lions might go 0-16 every year, to be completely honest with you, how bad they are. Like, he put the team on their back for 10, 11 years, 12 years, however long he's been here. And I'll always appreciate that. And he knew whenever the Lions had the ball down in the 4th quarter, you knew Stafford's going to give him a chance to win. And that's all you can ask for in the NFL, a chance to win with, a very talented quarterback. So, I'm going to always respect his game, and, he's probably even better human being. He's not on social media, so I couldn't really tell you, but he's a great dude, just a great football player. So.
Yeah, and you mentioned the lack of defense he had, the lack of running game he's had, the lack of talent. He had probably one of the greatest receivers almost in history of football. He retires prematurely, so he kind of loses that part of it. the one year that the Detroit defense was top in the NFL, they go 11-5. So that's showing you right there that Matthew Stafford can win football games if you have a defense. And you have other top quarterbacks in the league. They have a top defense every year. Jared Goff has had a top defense the last few years. And I still feel like you and me both think Matthew Stafford has outplayed Jared Goff in those certain situations with a bad team. So at the end of the day, Steve, what are you looking for most when Jared Goff steps into the building in Detroit? What is this going to be? Is this going to be a complete rebuild for Jared Goff to take this over? Or is it kind of just a placeholder for a couple of years?
Here's the thing, man. It's flexibility. Goff, his contract is up in 2 years. So if he doesn't perform in Detroit, they can let him go. No money against, the salary cap, nothing, wipe your hands clean. Or if he revives his career in Detroit, you can extend him if he's that good. Or you can draft a quarterback this year or next year or the year after because you have all these first-round picks now to groom under Goff. You know what I mean? There's just so many options. So it's really up to Jared Goff what he wants to do. If he wants to go out there and win some football games and make the playoffs and win a playoff game in Detroit, they'll give him a statue in Detroit who wins a playoff game, to be honest with you, because like you said, we haven't had one since 1991. So, I feel like he's going to come to Detroit very angry, very motivated, because he said he's going to be appreciated to be somewhere where he's wanted. So, who knows, man? He might go out and ball out, So, I hope he does. But if not, they have picks to pick a quarterback and get their guy for the next 2 or 3 years. So, it'll be fun to watch, a fun rebuild. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to be bad. They might be bad. They might get good over time, but it's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, and Jared Goff's coming in with a brand new head coach. You guys are on the new head coach train again, and that's I just have to talk to you, Steve, about that opening press conference from Dan Campbell. He was talking about getting down and punching people's kneecaps off and saying, "We're going to get back. We'll knock you out. We'll get back up even stronger." How did you feel about that opener? It was very aggressive.
I feel like you're trying to connect to the city, Detroit, a very tough, very, blue collar city. So I feel like, honestly, it got overblown in my opinion, but we can agree it wasn't the worst opening press conference. That Philly coach, whatever his name is talking systems for 15 minutes. So, that one takes the cake in my opinion, but no, Campbell seems like a good, he's going to be a leader of men. They need a leader of men in the locker room, which Matt Patricia wasn't. So, interview, whatever, just move on. I shrugged it off. Like I said, I feel like it's overblown. So.
Okay. But so you're in on Dan Campbell, or was that, what do you think about it? What do you think about?
I don't know, man. It was a hire, like I said, he's going to be a leader. They want a leader of men in there. I'm not sold on the first-year coaches anymore. You know what I mean? After the Matt Patricia debacle that we had, I really don't know if there's anyone else out there that's really, a good candidate. Like, they're going to hire Marvin Lewis or Todd Bowles or some other names they're throwing around to be the Lions head coach. Like, I don't know about all that. So, they brought a guy in here with some energy, so we'll see what he can do. Like I said, it's going to be a rebuild, so he's going to try to find his guys, and they're going to draft his guys. So it's a complete overhaul, so I'm going to give it its time. I'm going to give him a chance like I did Patricia, but like I said, I don't want to make a big assumption of him right now. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I'm kind of right in the middle.
Okay. All right. Well, at least you don't hate it. So that's a good sign. But
yeah,
Steve, real quick, Stafford was the nice guy in Detroit. He stayed in what has been an incompetent organization for over a decade. He never asked to be out of it. He stuck with it. Like you said, he's tough as nails. He's a competitor. Deshaun Watson is 25 years old, and he's in a franchise that is completely fallen apart. This team was up 24-0 in the divisional round to the Kansas City Chiefs last year. Since that moment, they lost that game, and it just completely fell apart. And now he wants out. People are giving him crap for asking to be out. Stafford got the green light. Why is Watson getting so much pushback for wanting out in Houston? And where do you see Deshaun Watson fitting best next year?
Man, I respect Watson. I always tell people he's like a top 3 quarterback in the league, in my opinion. I don't know why it's getting that hate. Like, that franchise is in turmoil. Like, who would wanna go through that? Especially when you're 25, you're a top 3 quarterback in the league. Like, I don't understand the hate. I know Miami's in talks, but they have Tua, and then the Jets were in talks, but the Jets are worse than Houston, in my opinion, for a dumpster fire franchise, like, in my opinion. But I don't know, man. He's a baller too. I love Deshaun. He's got a he's just like Stafford. He's gonna put the team on his back and win some football games, and hopefully he can make a playoff run on a competent team in the future. But I know there's a New England. I don't know if he fits in there, but I know Denver's looking for a new QB. San Fran. I mean, if he goes to San Fran, they're that division's gonna be already loaded with Stafford and Russ. So it'll be interesting to see. I really don't know, though. I mean, I didn't think the Rams were going to get Stafford, so I mean, it's just all unpredictable right now, I guess.
Yeah, and so with that being said, Steve, just before I kick you out of here, Super Bowl week, we got a big game coming up. Brady versus Mahomes. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I think we're all going to enjoy this Super Bowl in Tampa Bay. I need to ask you before you get out of here, what's your pick? What's your prediction and your score for the outcome of this Super Bowl 55?
So I'm rooting for Tom Brady. Before I moved to Buffalo, I liked Tom Brady because he went to Michigan. I'm a Michigan football fan. So being in Buffalo, I like Tom Brady even more because how much he's hated here. So, but I think overall, I think KC is a better team. I think they're going to pull it out 27-22. But, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Tom Brady has a little bit more magic in him and wins another Super Bowl. So I'll be rooting for Tom, but I don't think they're going to be able to pull it off.
Okay. Yeah. Steve, I'm kind of on that boat. There's a couple of great storylines that could go either way. And I think it would be amazing if Tom could go pull out a Super Bowl ring for another organization other than the Patriots. So I think we're on the same page there. But Kansas City's a lot to deal with, man. That is a lethal offense.
Oh, they can turn it on whenever they want. I mean, they've shown that last year when they were down, 24-0, and they just won games. And I mean, I think 2 weeks ago when they played the Bills, I mean, they were down 9-0 and they muffed a punt. And I mean, it was 9-0. Like I thought the Bills were going to win that game at that point, and then they just so calmly just took over that game and just kind of I wouldn't say manhandled, but like took control and like made it look easy, which I'm not used to seeing as a Lions fan. So I mean, it's very impressive to watch, man. I like watching the Chiefs. They're a fun team. So yeah, they got the Tampa Bay's got a lot to handle with this Chiefs team here. So it'll be a good one.
All right, Steve-O. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I hope you enjoy the Super Bowl on Sunday, and I hope, things work out in Detroit with Jared Goff coming in. So thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it, buddy. It's always a pleasure to be on here. So have a good rest of your show.
All right, Steve. I'll talk to you later, man.
Yeah, man.
All righty. So that was Steve Hostinsky, my Detroit Lion fan. And with that being said, he gave his pick for the Super Bowl. As we look into Super Bowl 55, this Sunday is going to be fun. And I don't think anyone can deny that. This is one of the most looked at Super Bowls that I can even remember. There's been a lot of good matchups, but this one is, for some reason, sits atop. And I think what it is the story of the GOAT versus an upcoming GOAT, the greatest of all time in Tom Brady, and someone who is on his way to matching that stature in Patrick Mahomes. And, Tony Romo this past week called it Tiger Woods versus Jack Nicklaus, or LeBron versus Michael. The young guys coming in and taking over what stood as the greatest of all time for so long. It could be one of the best Super Bowls we've ever seen. And solely based on talent in the field, it's unreal. And that Week 12 game these two teams had in the regular season, holy cow, there were some incredible matchups. Tyreek Hill went for over 200 yards and a couple touchdowns in the first quarter. And Kansas City dominated it early, and Tampa Bay made a comeback to make it close. If you look at these two teams, It's impossible, almost impossible, to decide who's going to win on Sunday. It's going to come down to the final minute before I decide who's going to win this football game. And, and here's why. You have a team that's won 25 out of 26 games with their starters on the football field. A team that came back from double-digit deficits in all three of their playoff games last year en route to a Super Bowl. They're the absolute favorite pick to repeat as champs before the season started. They lose one game in the regular season, two, but one to a divisional opponent in the Raiders, which will happen, and then another one in Week 17 with no starters playing. Then they get a week off. They beat a hot Cleveland team with no Patrick Mahomes and Chad Henne at quarterback for the final 23 minutes of the football game, and then completely dominate Buffalo, who was the best team in football for 8 weeks. Then you look at Tampa Bay. Looked awful in certain parts this year. Could not beat any team better than them or who punched them in the mouth. They would fold. New Orleans, Kansas City. The one team they beat that was good was Green Bay in the regular season. But they mold at the end of the season. They come together. The offense kind of picks up the slack from what the defense was doing at the first half of the season. And they go on to win 3 games in the road in the playoffs. They dominate Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay and Lambeau in the conference title game. On one hand, you have the GOAT story. Tom Brady establishes the best dynasty we'll ever see in the history of sports. Wins 6 Super Bowls in New England, goes on to win another with a wild card team in Tampa Bay, who had the worst winning percentage as a franchise out of the 120-plus professional franchises in sports. Take that in for a second. Worst winning percentage as a franchise out of all professional franchises in sports. Tom Brady comes in and they go to the Super Bowl. Then you have a young, flashy, very likable Kansas City team looking to go back-to-back and beginning a new dynasty with a quarterback who has set the league on fire, been discussed as the next greatest athlete in sports. A guy who won the league MVP, lost to Tom Brady and the Patriots in overtime of the AFC title game 2 years ago. Gets a close pep talk outside of the locker room from Tom Brady after the game. And then he comes out and gets his revenge and takes over as the best, winning his 2nd straight Super Bowl. Those are the 2 storylines we have here for you. I'm not sure how you pick the better outcome. I don't think you can. I think the best thing we can do as a sports fans in America is to just enjoy it. Take it in. This is either going to be Tiger Woods taking over as the best, the Boston Red Sox finally beating the Yankees and breaking the curse, Cleveland winning a title with LeBron, or it's going to be Michael Jordan winning a 6th title after the entire team being ran out of Chicago in favor of a rebuild after 5 titles. Or the GOAT prevails. Nobody expected it to happen. It's going to be one or the other. I, for one, love dynasties and winning over and over. I love Tom Brady and everything he stands for. I would absolutely enjoy seeing Tom Brady bringing a championship to Tampa Bay after years and years of bad football and cementing his legacy as the best ever. But I would also enjoy seeing the start of a new dynasty in Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes. I'm a sucker for both, so I'm at a loss at picking the winner right now. But someone who publicly despises Tom Brady and will take Patrick Mahomes over anybody, it's a certain guy I know, another one of my Newhouse Sports classmates and a group chat debate friend. Darren Wallace joins us tonight. Darren, how are we doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be a part of this. I've tuned in on occasion. I know you were doing this, and I'm honestly honored to have been asked because, I didn't have anything going on. And then when you hit me up, I'm like, wow, I get to be big time for a little bit, huh?
You're the big time, man. You got Patrick Mahomes in your corner. You're all in on Patrick Mahomes. This weekend we have a beautiful Super Bowl in front of us. Sunday's going to be a great day. We have the greatest quarterback of all time, and then there's Patrick Mahomes. I had to say that to you just to get you going. But Darren, how excited are you for this Super Bowl? It regardless of the outcome, I think it's going to be one of the best ones we've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe to some people, especially maybe some younger people, or maybe some people who might be like me that might not be the biggest fans of Tom Brady when he's terrorized your division for 20 years. Some of us might have been looking forward to Mahomes and Rodgers, which I think would have been just as, if not more exciting, just based on their play styles. But I think when you really look at it, I mean, you can't really go much, any more wrong with this matchup. You've got, the majority consensus GOAT and kind of the up and coming, some people are already saying he's the best already. Even if he retired today, he's already got a case for being maybe not the GOAT, but just the best of all time, just the best guy that's ever played the position. So regardless of the outcome, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious who I'm pulling for. But no matter what the outcome, I think the game's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, and you put "GOAT" in quotes, and I've heard your outcry of why Tom Brady is maybe not the greatest of all time and how he's won games in his career. But can you at least give some credit to the man who has gotten this far and won this many games, and he takes a franchise who has been the worst. They have the worst winning percentage of a franchise of all professional franchises in the past 20 years or so. That's a stat I found out that was unbelievable. And they go to the Super Bowl. Can you at least give some credit to Tom Brady for this?
Right. So, well, I thought it was just in the NFL. I didn't know it was in all of professional sports. So that's like both really sad, but maybe kind of impressive. I don't know, but yeah. I mean, no. See, my knocks on him are things that are really subjective. A lot of people consider winning to be the ultimate band-aid, that, you can go out there and do whatever, but as long as you win, it doesn't matter. The ends, justify the means. For someone like me, as a competitor, I always look to do my best. So even, I mean, I don't want to make it seem like Tom Brady and I are peers, but, when I evaluate sports, I like to look at, okay, they won, but why did they win? How did they win? So in my critiques, it's often just, oh, well, yeah, the Pats might have won that AFC Championship game, but Brady had a 65 passer rating and no touchdowns and 2 picks. So, I mean, what's goatly about that? I mean, what do we praise Michael Jordan for? We praise Michael Jordan for the shot, for, when it's the finals, he'll score 30 points. The flu game, he had 38 points and, 5 rebounds and 8 assists while being sick. So I'm not so ignorant as to ignore the fact that it's difficult. Like football it's difficult to win. That's why they say any given Sunday. So to be able to win that many games, I mean, it does say something about who you are as a player. But I think when you look into context, and I look at all players that same way, I look at, a player like Dan Marino, who didn't even win a Super Bowl. Am I going to blame Dan Marino for, he has the talent, but is it his fault alone why he didn't win the Super Bowl? Absolutely not. By some people's standards, Terry Bradshaw should be like a top 5 quarterback of all time. But I don't think anybody in their right mind would say that. Not to say Terry Bradshaw is not great or he wasn't good, but I don't think anyone would say that, especially in that era. So, I'm not so foolish or so silly as to say, not to at least acknowledge that it's difficult to do what he's done. And especially at this age, but he did get help. They put pieces around him, and realistically, you could argue that Tampa Bay was a quarterback away. They went and get the, some people's greatest quarterback of all time, and now you're in the Super Bowl as a result. So that's, partially a testament to him, partially a testament to the Bucs for what they were able to build. But at the end of the day, I mean, Tom got there, so not much really I can say.
At least you can acknowledge that. I appreciate that a little bit there.
It's hard. You got to swallow a bit of pride, but.
But you look at this matchup and all the stars that are between these two teams. I know you and I both you like a lot of Nick Wright and Colin Cowherd. I watch Colin Cowherd all the time. They both went back and forth today, and Colin gave his 10 best players. And it worked. If you look at it realistically, you could rank. If you look at the top 10 players going to be on the field on Sunday, you have a lot of Chiefs in that top, even just 5. You have 4 Chiefs that are probably A+ players with Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey, even on the defensive side, like Chris Jones and Tyrann Mathieu. But after that, it's a lot of Bucs players. It's a lot of a team front loaded with B plus players, or so
Right.
when it comes down to it, how do you look at it, the difference in you have a front loaded A plus guys and a bunch of B plus guys who round out the rest of that Tampa Bay roster? Do you take the star players to win a game like this, or do you take the roster that's more loaded all the way through from top to bottom?
Well, I think you got to look at it like this. Football is one with a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle, especially when it comes to winning the game. And the Chiefs, I think what a lot of people saw from the Chiefs, and I think what a lot of people got concerned about, was the Chiefs' body of work this season. It was a lot of big plays. It wasn't a lot of, long drives, grind you out on occasion. It was a lot of and that's how they've been for the past few years, but this year especially, it was a lot of bomb plays, and it's tough to rely on that. But I think when you're a team like Kansas City, when you have, like you said, those A plus players, you can get away with that. You can do that. Tyreek Hill is, anytime he catches the ball, he's liable to take off. Travis Kelce is, arguably one of the best tight ends after the catch of all time. So, would you rather have those A plus players or those B plus players? Well, kind of pick your poison, because I think who has the best player on the field? I think it'll be Kansas City. But the Bucs do have that advantage, and I think their biggest advantage on Sunday will be that defensive line, because a lot of the Chiefs' offensive line starters, they're going to be saying they're missing guys due to COVID. I don't know exactly what happened with that Barber, other than maybe a couple players, but that hurts you. Look at what the Bucs D line did to Green Bay's offensive line, and everyone knows how good the Packers developed their own line and how good they are. So at the end of the day, you can have the skill players, but it really comes down to the trenches. But I won't rule out the fact that Kansas City, Andy Reid, he can scheme things up. He can get guys in position. He doesn't lack faith in his players. You look at, a guy that wasn't listed in that top 15, Mecole Hardman. He muffed the punt. Very next possession, Andy Reid goes right back to him, to score a touchdown. And then later in the game, he had that jet sweep for about, 60, 65 yards. So, it's, they always say styles make fights. So I think it'll be, explosion versus, really grinded out longer drives. But at the end of the day, the Bucs are also liable to hit that big play too. They do have that big play capability. So I think, having the B plus players does help you, but it's really going to be a battle of that, off O-line, D-line. So it's kind of tough to give an edge. But gun to my head, I probably got to give the edge to the Bucs in terms of, having that defensive line advantage, being able to make life difficult for Pat.
Yeah. So basically, it's going to come down to that battle in the trenches. It's shutting down those A plus players and taking away that big play for the Chiefs. So at the end of the day, Darren, I'm going to ask you right now. I want a prediction and score for this game. What are you thinking? What are you leaning towards right now on a Thursday?
As much as I say that, and obviously it was a regular season game, but I think the luxury that the Chiefs have that maybe the New Orleans Saints didn't have, the Bucs got to play the Saints 3 times. The Chiefs only played the Bucs once. It's much easier to beat a team twice in the same season than it is to beat a team 3 times in the same season. And a lot of what won the Chiefs that game, I don't know what answers the Bucs have, because even though I mentioned those the D line and things like that, they were mostly held in check. For I'd say 2/3 of that game. Obviously, the Bucs got their way back into it. I think a lot of that was kind of due to some conservative play calling from the what's his name, Sperano, or I'm forgetting his name. The Chiefs defensive coordinator, Spagnuolo, yeah. So a lot of conservative play calling on his end. That obviously you do that against Brady. Brady can read you like a book. But it's hard for me to ignore what happened in that game. So I'm gonna go 38-34 Chiefs, just because I don't see. They did it to. I think they would have scored 38 against the Browns if Mahomes finishes the game. They scored 41 or 38 last week or 2 weeks ago against Buffalo. Mm-hmm. So I just don't see why they don't stop scoring. Obviously anything can happen. So I'm gonna go 38-34 Chiefs. MVP, I'm going to give you an MVP pick. I'm going to say Travis Kelce MVP.
Oh,
Travis
wow.
Kelce. It's easy to give it to a quarterback, but I'm just going to go out on a limb and say Kelce has like 15 catches, 130 yards, like just something like that.
Okay, that's a nice bold take. I like it. Something other than a quarterback for once, right?
Yeah.
So okay, thank you for that. We got the Super Bowl taken care of, but Darren, you're a huge Jets fan, and I wanted to talk to you about what's been going on in New York this year. So we all know about the Jets, the tank season, and they tanked and still failed to get the number one draft pick. They win a couple games at the end of the year. You lose out on Trevor Lawrence most likely, and now you have the second pick. But with all the picks you have available, Sam Darnold's still at quarterback, but now you have Deshaun Watson asking for a trade. He might be on the market. You have a lot of other quarterbacks on the market. Fast forward to April, after the NFL draft. What is the most likely outcome for the Jets moving into this 2021 season?
Well, it's interesting because I think some early reports are saying that the Jets are at least making calls. A lot of teams are going to call it. Deshaun Watson. There's not. I think he's already proven that he's a generational talent. People forget he's only 25. So if you're the Jets, you can look at it, a couple ways. You can look at it as you can take a chance on a 22, 23-year-old kid coming out of the draft and build them up. Or you trade, with however many picks, maybe including that number 2 pick, maybe not, and you trade all those picks, and your draft pick essentially becomes a 25-year-old Deshaun Watson who's already proven himself, if that makes sense. So, there's a lot of directions that the Jets can go. I believe Carolina's knocked on the door. Las Vegas has knocked on the door. And obviously a few other teams most likely that we just maybe haven't heard of. I know Miami has made some phone calls. So if I'm the Jets, and I feel that I can package enough draft capital without sacrificing too many players, because I believe the Texans want defensive starters. If I can package enough draft capital and Sam Darnold and they accept that trade, that's a win-win. I think you get a proven quarterback who's only going to get better. He's 25, so he's only going to get better. And he's already gotten paid. So even if you do, let's say they make the trade and then, come around the time, when he's 30, 31, he's not going to get, well, who knows what the quarterback market will be then. Nonetheless, my point being, you're going to get a proven quarterback who's 25, young, a lot of years ahead of him. Or you take a chance on a guy who, people like coming out of the draft, so maybe a Zach Wilson, maybe a Trey Lance could be the pick. So, but if I had to choose, I'd say if you can make that move for Watson, you get him. If the Texans say no and they say, oh, you don't got enough, you can't really go wrong with taking a chance on one of these guys. They look good, and we got a lot of picks. So,
okay, so you still think it's a possibility that you get Deshaun in New York. You don't want to get too excited about it, though. You've talked about, you don't, because you don't want to be let down.
People see the reports and they see the Photoshops. They get all antsy. Like, listen, I mean, nobody knew DeAndre Hopkins was getting traded to the Cardinals. Nobody knows what's coming. So you just gotta react. I'm not gonna get my hopes up. But I'm slightly hopeful. I feel like Joe Douglas is doing a good job, and I feel like he'll at least try.
Okay. All right. Well, with that being said, you said, Deshaun is only 25. How do you feel about him coming out and saying, I want to go somewhere else? Matthew Stafford wanted out of Detroit, and he gets to trade with LA almost immediately. Deshaun Watson wants out of Houston, and it seems like it's a big deal. People are giving him pushback for asking out of Houston. But what is the big deal here? What's the disconnect here? Why is there a difference? I don't know why there's pushback on Deshaun wanting out of Houston. Are you all for it if Deshaun Watson says, hey, I'm going to sit out this year until I'm not going to be in a Houston Texans uniform?
Yeah, I am all for it because I mean, you look at what the organization's done. You trade away. If I'm a quarterback and you trade away my top receiver for a bag of chips and a Sprite, I'm gonna feel some type of way about that. And then you parlay that into, a wasted season. They traded picks for Laremy Tunsil, who kind of regressed. They haven't built up the offensive line. He's taken, I think, the most sacks since he's been in the league. Like in the time he's been in the league, he leads the league in amount of sacks taken. So you look at that perspective. The defense isn't. They're not getting any younger. The front office is just making confusing move after confusing move, and then you also couple that with the last moment of greatness or positivity Houston had. They're up 24-0 on who would eventually become the Super Bowl champions, but a 24-0 lead, that's a 24-0 lead, and then you blow it. Part of the reason you blow it is because you go for it with a fake punt on your own side of the field, and then you lose by 20. So if I'm Deshaun Watson, I'm like, listen, these guys don't seem to really care about me. They're not drafting O-line. They're not building the O-line. They're not surrounding me with a lot of talent offensively. They just traded my best wide receiver, one of the best, if not the best wide receiver in the league, away for a decaying running back and like a 5th-round pick. So yeah, if I'm in a dysfunctional organization, I'm gonna say, listen, if you guys aren't gonna take care of me, what obligation do I have to give back to you? Now, when you look at Matt Stafford, he's in not much of a different situation. He's just been there longer. The Lions haven't done much since Jim Caldwell left. They hired Matt Patricia, and they kept him much longer than I think they should. They just hired some rock guy. I don't know what he's always talking about, rocks and stuff. So who knows what's going on there? They traded away their best corner last year. Calvin Johnson retired at 31, a wide receiver who definitely had years on him. Years left to play rather, and he just straight up retires. I mean, Calvin Johnson was playing through. He broke the record, Jerry Rice's record. He broke that record playing with broken fingers. But the Lions can't take care of their players enough that he felt he should retire. Instead of even look, he started to dislike football so much he decided to retire. So I think the difference of pushback is I think people have just seen it longer. So they're like, it's more justified. Deshaun's young. The situation can change. I don't think it matters. I think once you recognize that you're in a dysfunctional situation that you can't escape from, you're better off getting out of it now than just wasting away your career. Football's not forever. The average career length in the NFL is 3 years. So, thank God that Deshaun's already passed that, and he's definitely going to keep playing. But if you get a chance to leave a dysfunctional organization, you do it. Do I think some shut up and dribble stuff is involved? That's up for you to decide, for people to decide. I believe that there is, in terms of, one's a black quarterback, one's a white quarterback. But at the end of the day, I think most of it just comes from, we've seen Matt Stafford struggle longer, so you kind of feel a little more sorry for him, as opposed to Deshaun Watson, who, they've made the playoffs basically every year he was a full-time starter. So it's like, well, why do you want to leave so soon? But I think the Texans have kind of showed who they really are. So why not get out of there?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And you mentioned the Matthew Stafford thing in Detroit. So before I let you go, Darren, what do you think of that trade for Matthew Stafford to LA and to Jared Goff to Detroit for 2 first-round picks? What's your initial thought on that? Because a lot of people are blown up and they think, what the hell is LA doing? Detroit won that trade. But if you're going in to win now, Matthew Stafford's still 33 years old. You have Tom Brady's 43 in the Super Bowl. He's not that old. So what do you think about this?
So, I mean, I think most people know my stance on Jared Goff. I'm not too high on him. And I think once Sean McVay kind of came out, I mean, they essentially benched him because he came in the game after John Wolford went down, and you're watching him, and it's like, well, I mean, if he could do this, I mean, he wasn't great. You could obviously see he was injured, but if he could do this, and he's your starting quarterback, you play the starting quarterback. You don't start a backup just because he might, your starter might have, a thumb injury. So I think once Sean McVay came out and said what he said, once the GM came out and said what he said, and kind of, was really non-committal in terms of who their starting quarterback is, you kind of have to move off of that guy. As for the Rams, moving forward, I think they've proven that outside of the first round, they can find talent. There's talent all over the draft. I don't want to say first round picks are overhyped. I mean, I kind of think that you can always, like I said, you can always find talent in any round of the draft. Tom Brady, you just mentioned, 43, 6th round draft pick. Russell Wilson in the same division, 4th round draft pick. Jimmy Garoppolo, same division. What was he, a 2nd, 3rd round pick? So again, and a lot of quarterbacks weren't first round picks that are currently starting. So you gotta look at it. If you're the Rams, you get a win now situation at quarterback. Like you said, Matt Stafford, I think he had 32, 33. Definitely got years left on him and definitely proving he's talented. So you go win now. If I'm Jared Goff, I mean, I'm happy to be somewhere that I think wants me because the Lions pursued the Rams to get him. So if you're Jared Goff, you're like, oh, well, I'm happy, I'm going to be where somebody wants me. But at the same time, as a fan, you're kind of like, what does this mean for Jared Goff? What do they have in Detroit? You saw what they did to Matt Stafford. That kind of leads me to believe what's going to be different with Jared Goff.
Yeah, and I think you throw in a Matthew Stafford now, it shows that they're taking a swing for Sean McVay because they think he's going to be the next great coach, and you bring in Stafford to win right now because they have a great defense. So I think it's a win now kind of mentality, and you have to do it after, like you said, you get Goff out, basically bench him in a playoff game. But with that said, thank you a lot, Darren, for joining us. I'll never forget, I found a couple videos the other day of us. We were trolling through the woods trying to find video of deer back, what was that, a little bit over a year ago, probably in October last year. That was
around that time.
That was something. We were literally
going through it, trying to just, got to get that story and got to make deadlines. So you do what you got to do.
Chasing deer down in the woods. It was incredible. But all right, Darren, thank you so much for joining us. And, Sunday, enjoy that Super Bowl. I wish all the best for you and your homeboy.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cole. Thanks for having me.
All right, Darren. I'll see you later.
See you.
So that was Darren Wallace, another one of my Newhouse Sports classmates. And, just a lot of stuff going on in the NFL. Not only we have one of the best Super Bowl storylines / matchups that we're going to be seeing on Sunday, but you have all this other in-between stuff that's been going on. The most talk I've heard outside of the NFL, outside of the 2 Super Bowl teams in years. And it's the Deshaun Watson move. It's all these other quarterback moves, a blockbuster trade between LA and Detroit this past weekend. So a lot going on, and we'll just wrap this up right now. With our not really much of a last call segment, but with this being said, a lot of good stuff in the National Football League, and it's why I think the NFL is miles above a lot of the other professional leagues. You get so much more talk. There's so much more going on, and the moves in quarterbacks this offseason is going to be unbelievable. We are going to see almost a brand new and different shaped league than we've seen in past years, and it's all because of the moves in the quarterback. And I think this trade between Stafford and Goff and then the potential move of Deshaun Watson is going to set off a complete just domino effect of teams making moves, making sure they get a move ahead of the other organization. It's going to set off a fire in the NFL, especially if Deshaun Watson makes a deal and gets traded to another team. We're not sure if Houston's going to pull the trigger. I think they should, instead of keeping somebody locked up in a cage for a couple of years and almost threatening that they'll never put a jersey back on again. There's got to be something moving for that organization and for Deshaun Watson. And I think it's going to be interesting. But when it's all said and done, we have a Super Bowl on Sunday, and we're hoping that we can get you something, hopefully a Super Bowl preview, a Super Bowl special, maybe on Saturday, Sunday morning, if we can get Connor to join us back again. But with that being said, thank you for joining us, however you may be listening or watching. This is Beyond the Box Score, episode 16. I'm Cole Johnson in Tilly, New York, and hopefully Connor's having a good night coaching baseball. He'll be back this weekend. Thank you to all our guests. And this is Beyond the Box Score. Have a good one.